All right, I got it. Um, okay, so I do not wish to keep you waiting while we wait for Miss Bradley. So I will just ask directly and give her a chance to ask any questions she might have once she arrives. But Miss Rogers, I read your report, and if we can start with Angel, he's had the most, I think, changes in his status and circumstances since the last time we were in court. He's had a placement change and a runaway, and but it sounds like he has stabilized and seems to be doing well in his new therapeutic foster home. So can you speak to that and what your current assessment is of him at this time?
Yes, sometime around December, more towards the end of Thanksgiving, early December. Angel had been struggling in the foster home that he was previously at in Converse. There were several phone calls that I had received pretty consistently, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And Angel and I have a pretty good rapport with each other, and he's able to trust me and he's able to speak with me about anything and everything. And for some reason, he just kind of stopped responding for a couple of days, which wasn't right like him. And so then I reached out to the caregiver, and just the response that I was given and the lack thereof was very concerning. And so I had spoken with Angel several times. He did not feel comfortable there. He said that he felt safe, he just didn't feel comfortable. So then we went ahead and we were notified about 2 weeks after the fact that the previous foster parent put in a discharge. And so we went ahead and we were just looking for another home because we just didn't feel it was appropriate for him and meeting his needs. And he had struggled. He had gotten access to a THC vape pen, got in trouble for that, was doing things with other friends that he shouldn't have been doing. And he wasn't following not necessarily the rules, but just like the unspoken rules of the home. And so then around January 17th, I got a notification from the previous foster home that Angel had run away. He was given permission that morning to walk to school. Evidently, by the time that the foster parent got to the school to provide medical excuses, Angel was not in class, and that was at 8:15. Instead of trying to locate Angel at that point, he had notified law enforcement immediately that he had ran away. I had contacted both sisters and Casa to try to locate him. Casa at the time was sick, and so she was doing as much as she could. And both sisters were doing everything that they could. They found his location was at school through Snapchat. And it was consistent the whole day. He was on campus the whole day. Later that, after we had found Angel had informed us that he was on campus until about 5 o'clock while he was waiting on the foster parent. And one of his friends from the foster home had informed him the foster parent called the police on him and said that he had ran away. And so Angel got very, very frustrated because this isn't the first time that had happened that I was unaware of. And so Angel just ran. And in the process, he had ended up finding some keys, and he got access to a vehicle and took off with it with 2 other boys. And we found him in Converse about a day and a half later. And he was arrested for unlawful use of a motor vehicle. And so they put him in juvenile detention. During that time, we were trying to find him a placement. We had found one in Kingsville, but they rejected placement because they had accepted another child, and then later on ended up accepting Angel. So Angel had spent about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks in juvenile detention. I had seen him throughout. I had spoken with him over the phone, and he was making a pretty good behavioral change, something that he really needed. And so then I placed him in Kingsville. The report that I had gotten from the foster parents, the new foster parents, was that he was doing great. And then I went out and I visited with Angel, and Angel had not had a full day counted present at school, which was very concerning because when Angel is peer pressured, he'll just do anything and everything that that person tells him to do. But I met with him. I talked about expectations and told him, like, if you get truant, then that's not just you getting in trouble. That's your foster parent, and that's me. You need to be showing up to school, showing up to class, and doing the things that you need to be doing. He had been going to one class instead of going to all of his classes. He was skipping all of his classes and going to the one teacher that he felt most comfortable with. So we set a goal for him that if he shows up to each class and is counted present, that we would get him a job at either a local mechanic shop or at Firestone. And so that's what we're working on right now for him.
So he is going to school now?
Yes. I'm waiting
And-
on the report from last week.
Okay. And I think in your report, it says that he's very hard on himself and wants to do well in school. So you see that refocus now that he's back there and you have these expectations shared and a potential goal for him at this time?
Yes, he still turns in all of his work. He's passing all of his classes except for Spanish. But he's doing everything like he should be doing. It's just that he's not showing up to his class and to be counted present.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so how long you're waiting for the last batch of attendance records, but you've seen an uptick and a increase in his attendance since you set this shared goal?
So that was about 2 weeks ago. So I haven't received the attendance record yet.
Okay.
Angel was supposed to call me on Friday of last week, but that was Good Friday. So I didn't receive a phone call. I did attempt to call the foster parent, but they didn't answer. So today I'll be planning to call him after he gets out of school. He's in credit recovery from 4:30 to 6:30 every day until the end of the school year. So that's also helping hold him accountable and responsible. So I'll call him around 6:45 today to get an update.
But it seems, I think your report indicated that he is engaged in counseling now and is reporting even going to group counseling as well.
Yes.
And so you believe that this placement is meeting his needs at this time and that it should continue so that we can work to get him caught up academically and really help. I mean, if we can help him find a job like you've indicated.
Yes. And
Okay.
they're also willing to do the SIL program after he turns 18, which is something that we're also exploring with Angel. And it's something that he's very interested in with them.
Okay, that's very good. So he's 16. Has he started any PAL services yet?
I believe he has. I don't believe he's completed the last portion of it because there was a week that he didn't get to attend because he was in juvenile detention. And so I'm still waiting on the PAL supervisor to respond to me to let me know what the plan is to get him caught back up.
All right. Now, so a circle of support is scheduled or in the works?
We haven't had one yet. We had one last year. I can't recall exactly what time of the year it was, but we did have one, so we can get one scheduled again.
Maybe over the summer would be a good time to get that started.
Yes.
My last question regarding Angel is, what is the status of his criminal charges?
So at the time we had a hearing and he had both Rochelle Acevedo and he had a court-appointed attorney present. There hasn't been any movement on those criminal charges. I spoke with the JPO and she had informed me out of LaSalle County that they have up to 2 years to charge him and bring the charges to court. They said that if he stays consistent, he's in class and he's doing everything he needs to be doing, and he stays 30 miles away from Catula, that they would consider dropping the charge. Because at this point, they don't have enough evidence other than him verbally admitting to taking the vehicle. There's no written statement or anything like that, that potentially the charges would be dropped.
Okay, but it is also a motivator for him to do what he needs to do in both school and his placement, because it could potentially positively impact that criminal case as well.
Yes, and I did bring that up with him the last time that I saw him, because he kind of loses sight of how things are going and that he still has it on his record. And so I brought that up, that if he is found truant, if they bring truancy against him, then this potentially could affect him negatively in a huge way. And so he definitely, he started crying because he didn't expect that. And so I'm hoping that he's still going to be moving in the right direction.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's discuss Jasmine. How is Jasmine doing in her placement in Houston?
Jasmine is struggling. She was suspended from school from March the 30th through April the 4th for physical aggression towards her teacher. I am very concerned. I've reached out to the therapist several times to see what the issue is, as this has been the first time that we've had issues with Jasmine in school to this extent. She's been physically aggressive. She's had instances of sexually acting out in the bathroom. She's been physically aggressive towards other children or peers. And it's not the first time that she's been suspended during this school year. And so I brought it up with the placement, the treatment staff, with the school, and I haven't really been given an answer. So I'm not sure what the problem is, but it seems to be more consistent with the teacher. So I did request for them to see if she can be put in another classroom. I haven't gotten a response back, and neither has the PLSP, which is her, I believe that's one of her aides that's with her throughout the day. Her name is, no, that's our, the placement PLSP, Diane Yadrick. And she hasn't gotten a response either. She is on some pretty heavy medications. They did make a medication change. If I can pull that up. At the last visit, she was pretty lethargic because of that medication change. And we were concerned because it's unlike Jasmine to be in a visit and just sit there and kind of just nod off like she was going to sleep. Jasmine is full of energy. She's very charismatic. She loves to talk. She loves to pose in front of mirrors and play and just say the most random things and sing sometimes. And she wasn't doing any of that at one of the visits. So then we had another visit about a month and a half, almost 2 months later, and she was back to her normal self. There was a little bit of her just getting quiet, but it wasn't to that same extent. But she is currently on guanfacine, lithium 300 milligrams, oxycarbazine 300 milligrams, prazosin 2 milligrams, geodone 80 milligrams at bedtime, and then geodone 20 milligrams in the morning. And so I believe the geodone in the morning is what was making her tired, but it's for her psychosis and delusions. I've observed her bringing her back to the visit, and she still has hallucinations. And I'm not a doctor, but they're more like tics than delusions or hallucinations. So she'll just randomly say something, and then she'll continue on. She's also sexually acting out in placement. She recently flashed her chest in front of peers. She's also been using stuffed animals and using those, pretending like she's having a baby. She's gone around telling people that she's pregnant by putting the stuffed animal underneath her shirt. When asked about it, she's not able to respond or give a reason or talk about it. She has been refusing group therapy, and individual therapy is not successful right now because she's not able to fully engage. I have asked if there's a way that we can get ABA therapy, and they said that they were doing an evaluation, but I still haven't received the paperwork on that. She's passing all of her classes. I think she's making 2 or 3 C's, but they're high C's. She's really good in math and science, surprisingly. Those are pretty high grades right now. But other than that, just generally socially, outside of that, whenever they go on outings, she's a pretty good kid. I mean, she's able to listen to direction. She's able to redirect. She loves playing, and she has another roommate in her room. Before she was struggling with that, and now she's not. She's having a really good time, and she even said that that's her sister. She's really attached to the placement, and she begged me the last time that I brought her back not to take her back home. And so she said she wants to stay in Houston.
Do you feel like this placement is meeting her needs with, the issues that she's dealing with, that they're capable of continuing to do that?
No.
So what is your assessment then of what needs to happen for Jasmine? Have you looked into placements like the Autism Treatment Center in San Antonio? Is that something that you have evaluated as an option for her?
I have. I've looked up the one that's in San Antonio, and then there's another one that's about 7 miles from San Marcos. And I've reached out to our treatments or our intake and placement staff through Belong. And unfortunately, we don't have a contract with them because that's part of the state. And so we're trying to see if we can get a contract with them. The contract is very expensive. And so they said that if we can get an HCS slot for her, then we can get her approved to get placed there. Whenever I reached out to the disability specialist, she informed me that we cannot submit for that until she's 16. And so she'll be 16, I believe, in September. We've already completed the paperwork. I just can't submit it. They can't submit it until she's 16.
Okay. So that's just months away. And but in the meantime, are there any recommendations that you have for this court in terms of placement or services?
That's the difficult part. Unfortunately, the providers that I've reached out to just aren't able to take her. I would recommend that she be placed in an environment where it meets her intellectual disabilities, as well as her other extraordinary needs, not just basic needs. I just don't know what type of placement would be able to accept her at this given time.
Okay. And what can be done to strengthen strengthen the supports offered by the current placement that could help Jasmine be more successful?
We can provide chosen referrals. I'm not entirely sure the types of resources that are available through them. I can definitely research, and I can reach out to the supervisor and through Belong to see what other needs we can help provide for.
All right. Miss Bradley, I know you were having some technical issues and were participating by phone, so I hope you heard most of the testimony. Do you have any questions for Ms. Rogers?
Yes, just very briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Rogers, when you and I spoke prior to the hearing today, you indicated that Angel was not in contact with his siblings. Is that still the case?
He's not in contact with them currently. He broke both of the cell phones that he had gotten. And prior to that, he wanted very limited contact because of the incident that occurred back in January, which led to him going to juvenile detention center. And he had requested that he not have visitation with his siblings until he was ready.
All right. And do you take that as a positive sign or not?
With Maria, yes. He feels that she's not a good influence on him at this time. With Minnie, I don't feel it's a good sign because she just wants to support him in any way that she can, and Angel's just not allowing that. And he feels that he's just going to be a bad influence on her.
And when you say Maria has been a bad influence, what did you mean by that?
She's been involved in some things that are somewhat questionable. I don't have direct knowledge of these things, but it has been reported that she's been around individuals who are using marijuana. And she's also been, she's had a very tight connection to her father.
So basically, since Angel does not want to associate with her right now, is that a positive sign to you?
Yes.
All right. So I know you're working very hard to get him into the program because I think you told me he really loves cars or doing anything he can do with his hands.
Yes.
And so, and has that motivated him when things were not so good?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Pass the witness.
With regard to Angel, I think he's requesting certain items like his ID and birth certificate. Is he able to get those from you?
Yes, he has his birth certificate. He left it at the previous placement, so I'm planning to go and pick up the rest of his items. Once I can pick up his birth certificate, then we'll go and we should already have his social security card. I had ordered it shortly after the last hearing, so I'll reach out to our specialists through the state to see if we have any movement on that. And if not, then we'll plan to either reapply for another one or we'll just go to the Social Security office.
Okay, and obviously he's asking that for being able to apply for jobs, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and as far as him applying, and I know that you discussed it, I mean, is that something that we need to collectively agree on? Is this something that you think is good for the summer?
I think it would be something that he can work towards during the summer so that it's not interfering with school, because school is the most important at this time since he's missed so many days. And we don't want for him to, anyone to file truancy against him.
Okay, and I guess with that, do we even know if he's gonna have to go to summer school?
Not yet. Since he's doing the credit recovery every day after school from 4:30 to 6:30, there's a chance that he'll be ahead by the end of the school year. But once we get towards the last couple of weeks of May, we'll have a little bit more of a better picture.
Okay, and do you know, I know that we're sort of in the middle of his credit recovery, but what is the anticipated goal for him obtaining his diploma? In short, let me just tell you, I think the CASA report indicated that he's under the impression that he's going to graduate in December.
He did think that he was going to, and after he spoke with a counselor at the school at the Wednesday prior to me meeting with him about 2 weeks ago, he realized that he's not going to graduate in December and that he's going to have to graduate on time, which will be next May.
Okay, and is there a reason why he wanted to try and graduate early?
He wanted to get out of care. He has the idea that if he graduates from school early, And after he turns 17, he'll be able to emancipate himself.
Okay. And how is he with the news that that's probably not going to happen?
He was actually very understanding, and he doesn't have the pressure on him anymore. He took that pressure off of himself, and he says that he's glad because he can be able to interact and really take in his senior year so that he can play sports, which is something he hasn't been able to do in a public setting in a long time.
Okay. And I guess the idea, I know, what is the ultimate goal for the department for Angel?
I believe the goal that we had in place was unrelated conservatorship, but we will be changing the goal to independent living.
Okay, and that's been discussed with him and what those kind of parameters and those options are for him?
Yes.
Okay, and he's becoming more and more open to discussing those?
Yes.
And then I guess with regard to Jasmine, 15 going on 16, and we haven't had a circle of support for her, correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and when do you think that needs to start happening?
We should probably go ahead and request for to have one as soon as we can.
Okay, and I think these are a little complicated questions, but I guess just with regard to, like we discussed before, her special needs, what needs to start becoming in place? Like, has the department applied for Social Security for her?
I have not applied for Social Security. That was the conversation that I had with the disability specialist to see if we should. I know there was something that she's already receiving disability. And so I don't believe there's a need for it. I can't recall what the emails were saying off the top of my head. But my understanding is that she's already receiving disability services, and that we just need to go ahead and submit for the application for HCS slot.
Okay, and ultimately, what's the goal for Jasmine?
I believe it's community care.
Okay, and so those steps need to be started now, because obviously she can't go into independent living, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that something that she can fully understand and appreciate?
She does not understand, no.
Okay. And I guess, do we need to reach out to dads? And when would that be? Dads?
Well, I'm sorry, you buffed out. What was your question?
Oh, when do we need to start reaching out to dads or making those, start those lines of communication?
I'm not entirely sure because I haven't gotten that far into that. I know based off of policy, it's later. It's somewhere around 17, right before she turns 18 is when we reach out to dads.
Okay. And then with regard to, I know you said the Autism Treatment Center, do you think that that's a placement that could reach her needs right now?
An autism center or the current placement?
The Autism Treatment Center.
I feel that the Autism Treatment Center that's about 7 miles from San Marcos will be better for her because they also worked with children with intellectual disabilities. And they're also able to take children who up to 25 who have intellectual disabilities. So they can keep her until she turns that age and then she would transfer over to the dads. I feel that would be the most beneficial for her. At this time, I don't feel that the current placement is meeting those needs.
Okay, and so if the court ordered, because I know, I think the only issue right now is that there's not a contract, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the court could order the department to pay for that up until she's 16, because you've indicated that at 16 you can apply.
We can apply. I'm not sure what the response will be. Or how long it will take. That's what the disability specialist had informed me of. And I'm not exactly sure the process. If the court orders that, and what belong needs to do.
Okay, and I guess the only issue with that is, Jasmine has a very hard time with change, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and she is, while the placement is not meeting her needs, she's very bonded to certain employees there.
Yes, one of the employees she calls mom, and the other employee she calls sister.
Okay, how do we anticipate this changes would affect her?
It would be the same as it was the last time, where she had extreme changes in behaviors. They were not consistent either. One day she would be fine, she would be really calm, and then that night she would wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning and just wouldn't go back to sleep, and she would be making all kinds of noises, and it ended up putting her in a psychiatric facility shortly, for a short amount of time, and that's what I'm afraid of. I don't want to have to put her in another psychiatric facility because of her rapid changes in mood.
Okay, and I know you said, I don't know, is she just refusing to go to her, did you say therapy?
The group therapy.
Okay, is she going to her individual?
I haven't received any notes recently for the end of March, but she said they had said that she's participating in treatment, but in the treatment she's non-compliant, meaning she's not engaged with a therapist.
Okay, but Jasmine does better when we prep her for change, correct?
Sometimes.
Okay, is this something that we can work with the counselor to, I guess, address prior to this actual move?
Yes.
And she's still having sibling visits?
She is.
Phone calls also?
She's allowed to have phone calls. Every time they prompt her and ask her if she would like to call her sister, she says no.
Okay. I'll pass it.
Any additional questions for Ms. Rogers? If not, Ms. Acevedo, do you have an assessment right now for Angel and Jasmine?
Judge, obviously there's a lot of moving parts right now. And I think it's I guess less of a report than it is to inform the court, but I think it's more of us coming collectively to, because I think that we're at a point with Angel and Jasmine that we need to start thinking about their future, about these circle of supports, about what we need to do for Angel to get him where he needs to be if ultimately we're looking at independent living. I think he's trying to make those changes and make the decisions that are in his best interest. So I think just giving him a good timeline and engaging him in, I guess, the adult decisions that he wants to make. Like, I know that he wants this job. And I think it's good that it's goal oriented. Like, well, if you do this, then you get this. And I think that he relates to that. And so, but obviously, like I said, he's 16, and I want to make sure that he has his pal, that he has these items, that we're setting him up for success. Because I think, as you know, Judge, time goes by so fast in these last couple of years. And so I just want to make sure that he's set up and that we have the right goal. I think that we were looking at either a relative placement or adoption, and I don't know that those are realistic goals. And obviously it's been changed as she stated, and so I think that these are more realistic. But with regard to Jasmine, I think that I mean, ultimately she has a lot of needs. She's not going to be able to take care of herself. It's going to be a lifetime thing, and ultimately I think it's probably going to be a learning curve for all of us to make sure that those things are set up for her. I know that her sisters are very, very involved. I know Minerva's on, and I don't doubt at all that in their minds, she could just go, she can come live with me. And I think that we've discussed that previously. But ultimately, we wanted Minnie to succeed in her young adult life. And so obviously I want Minnie to be a part of those conversations and those circle of support so that she can be really involved, because I know that the siblings are very bonded. And I think that it's important for them to know what's going on so that they can be a part of her adult care. But ultimately, I don't know that they want to be responsible for that forever. I mean, they're very young. So I don't doubt that they would want to and would do everything that they in their power to do so. But I think that we need to set up Jasmine as well so that the family's not struggling at that point. As far as Jasmine, she does well. And then we go back to these behaviors, the sexually acting out, the drawings, so I mean, ultimately, I'm sad that she's not going to group therapy. I think that those are the things that help her the most, but hopefully she can get back involved.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Acevedo. And Ms. Franklin, what would you like to add to the discussion?
Well, thank you, Judge. And today I'm going to play the educator. I have a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention and the court's attention regarding Angel. First of all, Angel seems much more relaxed in his current placement. I visited him at school and I have visited him in the home, and he's doing well. My concern is when I found out through Tricia about his attendance. First of all, I was upset with Angel, but then I became upset with the school. Number one, I have emailed the counselor and she has my contact information, and no one reached out to me about his attendance. Angel was keeping up with his work, but as Tricia explained to me, attendance is taken at the end of the period. And what was happening was that Angel was finishing all his work and being allowed to leave class. But then when attendance was being taken, he was being counted absent, even though he had been there to do his work and allowed to go to another teacher. And the other teacher wasn't letting anyone know that he was there instead of in his class. So as a former educator and an administrator, I have an issue with teachers doing that to a child, to a student. That's number one. It's not going to hurt him to go to credit recovery. Okay. It bothers me that it got to that point that Tricia had to intervene before something was done about it. So his attendance, yes, he and I will discuss that. But, he had flat out told me, oh, yes, I have permission to go to other classes, after I do my work. School communication is a big issue to me. He did think, we both thought, because he had gotten so many classes through credit recovery, but I've been asking for his transcript for forever from different schools, and Tricia finally got a hold of it. But it's going to be a good thing for him to finish school on time. He really doesn't need to be out early. It was bothersome to me that he was going to be out early, because I think staying in school for him will be a good thing and allow him to mature a little bit longer. He is excited about the possibility of getting a job. We've talked, he likes the town of Kingsville. He says it's not too big, but it has all the things that he wants. He likes the school because he says it's not as big as his last school. He says his last school was just huge. We've talked about college. On my first visit, college was out. On my second visit, college was back in. He was talking more about trying to work and maybe take some classes because he would like to someday have his own business and perhaps have his own auto body shop. And he understands that it would be good for him to, if not have a degree, at least have some classes that would help him to run his own business. So he had not an official visit to the campus, but they had been over to play basketball or something on the campus, and he had walked around and he liked it. And he likes the feel of the town. He likes where he lives. He showed me his room. He was very proud of it. So, he feels good about where he is. With regard to Jasmine, Trisha and I have talked about her. Whereas the people there truly love her and care about her, and we meet every month and have treatment plan meetings, Jasmine's behavior does go up and down. She had been doing really, really well for the last month and up through her visit. And the last visit was so much better than the previous visit where she had been so lethargic that Trisha and I had talked during the visit, and we were just like, this is not Jasmine, you know. And then she goes back to placement and has all these issues. She doesn't do well with change, which is one reason why I especially talk to the placement about she needs to know about anything that's going to be different from her daily routine in advance. Any little thing can set her off, and so I don't know. We'll see if this settles down, and if and then we'll see what happens with the next thing that changes. I mean, she even got to go to she was doing so well, she got to go to the Houston Livestock Show. They took the group to the Houston Livestock Show, and Jasmine was able to go. I asked Trisha to see if we can have an ARD meeting and discuss her behavior intervention plan, and to see if her behavior intervention plan is being followed. And if it's been updated, Trisha hasn't been invited to an ARD meeting. I don't know if they're just inviting the placement and forgetting about, everybody else. But first and foremost, I believe this last suspension was a 4-day suspension, if I'm not mistaken. And that's not typical. Usually it's a 3-day suspension. And usually when you begin to get close to 10 days out of placement for a year, you have to meet and look at your intervention plan and see if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. So I'd like to see an ARD meeting. I'd like to see what steps within the facility they're taking, because if they're doing one thing with Jasmine at school and a different thing with Jasmine at the facility, that could also be causing issues, because no child does well with different sets of rules, and especially a child with disabilities like Jasmine. The more consistency you can use with her, the better off she will be and everyone else will be. The therapy, I've got some issues as well. I agree with Trisha. We never hear much about the individual therapy, and I'm not sure how Jasmine would do in group therapy, period. I'd like to see her get some therapy that was more along the lines of, we have to remember that Jasmine is autistic, but she's also intellectually delayed. And so we might need to look at therapy not for a 15-year-old, what would be for an age appropriate for a 15-year-old, or what would be age appropriate for someone who is younger, maybe more along the lines of something, even some play therapy or something. I don't know, but I don't think that she's going to get anything out of group therapy if they're approaching it age appropriately, because I don't think she's able to comprehend concepts that are necessarily age appropriate. You know, when you look at Jasmine, and even when you talk to Jasmine, okay, you get the feeling that, oh, okay, she's 15, she can handle this. But the more time you spend with her, you really realize that in many instances, she behaves much younger than she actually is. And the only other thing I would like to mention to you today is that Maria is doing fairly well. She is currently working 2 jobs, but she is still being carried on my CASA workload because she has not been officially, I don't know, dismissed or whatever. But she is no longer as a caseworker or is being seen by anyone from Belong or CPS. I do see her. We are in communication all the time. So I don't know what official communication needs to happen. And I will not drop her. We are friends, but my CASA office tells me that that she's going to remain on there until we get some kind of official notification. But she's doing okay. She struggles at times, but Maria is extremely resilient and wants to support herself. And you know, she's just she's a hard worker. You're never gonna have to worry about her taking care of herself. Thank you, ma'am.
You, Ms. Franklin. And before I move on to everything else, I know in Virginia, I'm going to need to defer to you because I know that you've been addressing the lack of clarity regarding Maria in terms of orders, and I believe we've talked about this, but I don't see it in CPCMS, so I don't know if we're still waiting for the correct paperwork. My understanding as far as Maria is concerned is that she has left an authorized placement with the department. So she has left and is no longer in extended care, but is in a trial independence period in which she is no longer within the jurisdiction of this court. She is not in a position where she would have a caseworker meet with her. And that trial independence period lasts a year. At any point in that year, if she feels she needs to return to care, she may, which would reinstitute the extended jurisdiction of this court and the extended care of the department. But I don't think that there is, I think we were sent the incorrect items. Virginia, can you speak to that? Because I don't see anything in CPCMS.
Yes, ma'am. I was talking to Marilyn about it this morning in email, and she confirmed that she did not return to care, but at 18 years and 2 months, they filed a notice terminating trial independence. I'm not sure why, but she's nonetheless, she hasn't returned, and at the end of this month is when it would have ended.
The trial independence would end this month?
Yes.
She left care over, she left care a year ago.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Do we have an order that dismisses the department as the managing conservator? Yes, I extended court. Yeah, I have an order dismissing. And then, so they just need to, they need to
they already terminated trial independence after she was 18 years and 2 months.
Well,
It was
that's not
probably-
possible.
They,
So that
they
needs to be
filed
corrected.
it. Yeah, they
It
filed
needs to be
it.
corrected. So Ms. Bradley, what are you going to do about that?
I was not aware this had been filed, and we can certainly file an order to revise, amend, and retract that termination.
I mean, and you'll end up doing it later this month, but that's not correct. And that's why Ms. Franklin's on the hook right now as well, is that we don't have the correct paperwork in place for CASA's benefit either. So, I mean, those kind of details are important. And, you know, I don't expect Maria to change her mind in the next few weeks, but it's important to have the correct information filed with the court. So I am going to ask that you correct that. And then when the trial independence period actually does end, to send your notice at that time. Okay, so Ms. Franklin, I hope that that addresses your
Yes, ma'am.
concerns on that as well, because they're justified.
Thank you. I
All
appreciate it.
right. And as far as Angel's concerned, based on the testimony the court has heard today, the court is going to continue Angel's placement. Find that continuation of that placement is in his best interest, that all of his physical, emotional, developmental, and academic needs are being met presently, but there is some work to do. And I hear Ms. Franklin and her concerns that, you know, if you and the school are not on the same page about what attendance, how it's being tracked, and whether or not he's actually there, and if the actual teachers at the school are undermining his ability to get credit for being in class, we need to do something about that. And you know, it's unclear to me, is he also either on an IEP or a 504 plan that you could ask for a meeting? He's not, and on any basis? Okay.
He
I think-
has the, I'm sorry to interrupt. I did speak with the counselor and she said that he has the option at the end of the year to do an ARD, because they hold theirs at the second week of May or the third week of May. So that's what we can request.
Does he have any, because it just seems to me that he would qualify if with, and I need to see what his latest psychological evaluation has, but that he might qualify as a child with an emotional disturbance. And, you know, there's a whole set of, you know, plans and interventions that he could potentially be entitled to. And even if he has ADHD, which I'm not clear, but his behavior seems to indicate he would qualify for a 504 plan. So I think that we need to have that meeting. And so the court is going to order that the department request an ARD and have him evaluated for potential 504 or IEP services, and that there be a plan in place going forward. And short of that, in the short term, I think just a basic meeting with the school counselor and just an understanding that there needs to be and the foster parents, that everybody involved needs to be on the same page about how, if we want him to be in school, what you're going to do to ensure that he is, and how he's going to get credit for being there. Because, you know, if that's kind of silly that he's going, doing his work, being excused, and then counted absent, that doesn't make any sense. And so I do think the school has to have some accountability here in terms of how they're handling and addressing this, and it shouldn't all be on Angel. I'm not trying to excuse his, you know, absences, but in the situations where he's doing what he needs to get credit for that. In addition, I think a circle of support is warranted. So I'm ordering Belong to set up a circle of support. We need to start planning for his future and helping him understand the benefits that he's entitled to and what his options are. And, you know, it sounds like he has plans and goals. And so we want to help him meet them. Otherwise, it sounds like he is where he needs to be. Jasmine, I'm concerned about. And at this time, I'm continuing the placement, but only because I know we don't have an immediate alternative option available for placement, which it's clear to me, and I'd like the order to reflect this court finding that what Jasmine needs is a placement that is specially equipped to address her developmental disability and her autism. And the placement that she's in does not do that. I mean, and it's wonderful that she has people that she has a connection with. But that's the whole problem. And listening to the testimony today, I don't think group therapy is appropriate for her either. There's nothing she's going to get out of that other than to potentially disrupt it for everybody else. I don't think she doesn't meet the typical, she's not that typical person at RTC. She's got a disability that is the source of all of those behavioral issues. And so I absolutely agree with Ms. Franklin's assessment too, that you need an ARD meeting in the short term while you're trying to ensure that she's not assaulting people at school and that they're understanding. I mean, what should have happened if she should be on an IEP for sure. If she's on an IEP, they should have had a manifest determination assessment in which you determine whether her disability was the source of the incident that led to her being suspended. And she shouldn't be suspended if it was. That would be a denial of a free, appropriate public education. And so we've got some issues here that I think that the education specialist and the disability specialist need to be on board for. And I honestly think a meeting between all the parties here, including the disability specialist and the education specialist, is warranted to talk about this host of issues that relate to her education and her placement, and getting her ready for turning 16, applying for adult SSI, getting things in place and planning for her future for community care, because that is absolutely where we're headed. And we need to start that process. As I understand it, it happens as soon as she turns 16, that we begin the work to get that done so that it's ready when she turns, before she turns 18, to make that referral to dads. So there's a lot of work to be done here. In addition, I'm ordering Belong to do the work either by seeking a specialized contract with the Autism Treatment Center or a similar type program, or beginning the process of helping her qualify for placement there through the HCS system. I mean, so I'm covering both bases here. I don't want you waiting until September to start the process to like look at that option. If there's an option for a special contract immediately, we need to be looking into that as well. All right. And I think that all of those considerations are necessary and on the table for Jasmine at this time. And so I'm continuing her current placement with those conditions and expectations going forward. I am, we're not set to come back for a permanency review after final order until September 11th, which I feel is too far away given all of the issues that are going on with both of these children. And so I'd like to come back for a progress hearing in July. And I believe that there is a docket on July the 10th. So that would be, yeah, here we go. And we can come back at 10:30 that morning. Is there anything else that you need clarification about regarding the court's findings and orders today? No?
Yes, Judge, could I get you to say what the manifest determination, was it a meeting or a hearing?
well, it's a process that the school district is supposed to have had, and to assess whether the conduct that led to Jasmine being suspended was the source of it was her disability, which I mean, I don't know how it couldn't be. I mean,
Right.
I
Right.
really just don't. I mean, it should be. So that's what I just think you need to enlist the help of the education specialist to advocate on her behalf. If she's going to stay there any longer, you know, and she's already missed 4 days of school, you know, we're approaching a denial of a free appropriate public education.
I
So,
just needed a clarification of the term. I did understand what you were.
yeah, Amanda, and Miss Franklin, I mean, it's been years since I did this directly, but that's my understanding. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Yes,
Judge.
ma'am. It is part of the art. It's part of the art process. So it's
Yeah.
a manifestation
There should have been a
determination. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just
All
wanted to
right.
be sure I got your order
Yeah,
correctly.
no, that's great. That's great. So, okay, does everyone understand what we need to do then? And we'll be back in July to review. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, Miss Rogers,
What day in July?
it was July the 10th at 10:30. Oh, Minerva, what would you like to?
There is a chance I won't be able to attend that due to inventory at my store currently. Currently,
Oh.
we're preparing for it, but it happens in July.
Okay.
So there's a chance I won't be able to be here for that. So, if, to my understanding, Miss Rogers is going to be moving to another case, if I'm right? No?
I'll be transitioning over to adoptions.
Yes.
We'll
But
make sure you're advised of how to connect if you're able to make it, Minerva, and we'll do our best to ensure that you can still participate if it's possible. Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And
Well,
I
thank
will
you so
I will
much.
always be here, Minnie. I will
Yeah,
always
that's right.
be
Miss Franklin's on.
I can
On
always
board
reach
as
out
well.
to Miss Franklin as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they'll let you know who is assigned the case. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.